I always say HISA, but it's HISA, high intensity self-awareness. I need you to know every single thing there is to know about yourself. I need you to know your spiritual gifts, your purpose, your strengths, your weaknesses, your love language, and also your attachment style. And when you know what your attachment style is, you have a better idea and understanding of why you do relationships the way that you do.
You ever wondered why you keep attracting the same type of partner or why a relationship feel like an emotional roller coaster? It might not just be bad luck. Your attachment style could be playing a huge role. Hello and welcome back to the Relationship Compass. I am your host, Eva Asagwa, the founder of My Love Map, and your bestie when it comes to love, growth, and faith. Today we are back with another informative and timely topic. At this point, we all know about love languages and how important they are to our relationships. If you did not catch that episode, please do. But today we are talking about attachment style. I am excited and blessed to have our guest today. She's a coach, a podcaster, an author. I listened to her podcast on this topic and thought I had to have her here so she can teach us. So without further ado, let's welcome Victoria Baxter, aka Coach V. Thank you for joining me today, Coach. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that welcome. So I am Coach V, the new love strategist. I am a certified life, dating, relationship coach, forgiveness coach, along with a trauma-informed specialist. And really, I'm just all about helping single Christian women when it comes to just renewing their hearts, unlearning a lot of the unhealthy patterns that have held them back in love so that they can date intentionally and win at kingdom love. I am all things kingdom as far as kingdom relationships and kingdom connections, doing things according to the living word. And yeah, that's what I love to do to help ladies out.
Awesome. Well, you heard her. She's amazing. So I am so excited. I hope you are too. We're going to dive in. We're going to start with the basics. What is an attachment style and how does that develop?
Sure. So, an attachment style is actually the way that we ultimately perceive relationships. It's the way that we do relationships. They have a lot to do with how we do romantic relationships more than anything. But again, it is relationships in general. And the way they are formed is from the way that we were cared for when we were children, like all the way back from being babies, children, toddlers. Of course, that's the way that we view life, relationships, love, and connections. So ultimately, it is based off of how our parents or our caregivers cared for us, how they gave us love, how they gave us attention, affection. That's how we learn to ultimately do relationships. So attachment styles are typically formed from childhood, but there are things that can also alter those things as we go on throughout life and do relationships and friendships and, romantic relationships as well. But primarily, it all stems from childhood.
Okay, wonderful. So the way we relate it to a parent figure can determine our attachment style, if I understand correctly. All right. Oh, what are the different types of attachment style?
Sure. So there are four primary attachment styles. So the first one is secure. That's typically, those who grew up in loving homes. They were able to communicate. There was not a whole lot of conflict. Mother and father were there. Of course, typically that's how that works. But even if there was only one parent, that child's needs were met. They felt secure, in those relationships and expressing themselves. So the secure attachment style are for those who are able to easily navigate relationships. They are pretty healthy within, healed and whole and all of the things that we talk about today. And they are not dependent on a partner at all. And then, of course, when it comes to the insecure attachment styles, there are three that fall under that umbrella. The first one that I see a lot of in my line of work would be the anxious attachment style or anxious preoccupied. That is where you really, really crave and need that validation. You need that reassurance. You can make everything about your partner or at least your close relationships in general. That's when sometimes you see people who might be just a little clingy, just a little needy, and things like that. And again, preoccupied, like it consumes your thoughts. Everything that you're doing, you're thinking about that person or that relationship. The next one would be fearful avoidant. Fearful avoidant is also known as disorganized because it's like you have this push pull. It's like you crave the relationship, you crave the connection, but you also have that fear of being abandoned because a lot of the insecure attachment styles are rooted in abandonment issues. So it's like I crave the attention, I want the love, I want the connection, but hold up, this person might hurt me, so let me also protect myself. I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want to be rejected. And you ultimately end up confusing people because it's like 1 minute you're giving, then it's like 1 minute you're pulling back. And then the last one would be dismissive avoidant. Those are the ones who are just unavailable. The thought of intimacy, it terrifies them. Again, primarily rooted in that fear of being abandoned. So they put people at bay. They really do not allow anyone to get close. If it seems that anyone is wanting to get close, like they will cut it off and walk away and just be completely done. So the thing is that's interesting about the fearful avoidance slash disorganized is that it's a person who really kind of goes back and forth between anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant. 1 minute it's clinging and craving, but the next minute it's like, nope, I'm avoiding and I've got to put you at distance. So those are the four attachment styles. And again, they stem from childhood ultimately.
Wow. Wow, I can see how that would be very hard to deal with when you are in a relationship with the anxious or the avoidant attachment style. Just quickly, I don't know if there is a statistic around this, but which one do you think we have more of, like just generally?
Typically, it's a very small number, I'll say, that fall into the secure category. Anxious is actually the leading one. I think when I last looked into it, it was like maybe like around 50 something percent of people actually fall into the anxious preoccupied. And I think especially if you look at like our generation and our age group, about 2/3 of us actually came from a broken home. There's broken home syndrome is a real thing. We grew up in a single parent household. So with that also explains, I'm not going to jump ahead, but why there's so many complaints about dating and relationships and stuff like that today. But it's really a dating pool that is full of people who have insecure attachment styles to some degree. But anxious preoccupied is definitely leading the game right now.
Sounds like we need to do a lot of healing so that we can become secure. Well, which attachment style do you think work well together? Is there any combination of those that may be better together than others?
So, truth be told, the best one and the one that works the best together is going to be a secure person with another secure person. Anything outside of that, it is going to be work. It's not impossible, but it definitely takes self-awareness and it takes healing. It takes knowing your triggers, knowing what your attachment style is ultimately for any other combination to work. But yes, secure and secure, that's the best possible combination that any relationship can have.
Yeah, that would make absolute sense. On the reverse, do you think there are two attachments out that should not even try to do it? Like it will be like a lot of clashing.
Absolutely. Anxious, preoccupied, being with either a fearful avoidant or a dismissive avoidant. And that's the most common one, but it's also the one that it's like, absolutely not. You two do not belong together. You are going to be in for a long road and some rough times. And those two, and it's mainly because again, the anxious person, they need that attention. They crave that reassurance. They want to know that nothing's wrong, everything is good to go. And if I can divert just for a moment, even scientifically speaking, so from the time that we meet someone and the time that we fall in love, our brain is actually releasing all of these different chemicals up to 36 months, up to 3 years from meeting someone. So you have dopamine, norepinephrine, all of these things that are being released. So you're on this high, and that's what ultimately being in love is all about. And the anxious person, that's what they need. That's what they thrive off. They love that feeling and that connection that's going on. And initially, everyone has representatives in the beginning of relationships. We're putting our best foot forward. Everything is perfect. You're all in love. You're all happy. There are no problems. And ultimately, what ends up happening is the avoidant person, especially a fearful avoidant, they start to back up sometimes because it's like, this is getting intense. This person might hurt me. This person might leave me at some point. So anytime they start to disconnect or pull back a little bit, it actually disrupts the nervous system and the attachment system of the person who is anxious, preoccupied. So they notice any type of changes that happen in the relationship, and it literally makes them panic. So now it's like they're seeking that connection that was previously there. They're seeking that validation, the reassurance. They want to maintain the connection, and they can become very emotional, sometimes irrational, sometimes, they're not logical. And especially if you're still in that window of being in love, I always say it's very hard to rationalize with someone who is in love because of the chemicals and the hormones, and then on top of their attachment style, which has to do with their nervous system. So that combination is one that actually is very, very popular, but it's not good because of all the back and forth and everything. And you can have two people who love each other, they really care for each other. Ultimately, they can be great together. But again, without self awareness, without both of them healing and getting to the root, it's going to be a whole lot going on inside of that relationship. It can be a little bit of a mess, if I can be completely honest. So, yeah,
Right.
anxious with either fearful or dismissive avoidant, 10 out of 10, do not recommend.
Don't do it. 0 star. Wow. Is there ever a way that these two people can make it work?
Absolutely. And again, going back to what I've already said a couple of times now, self awareness, you have to first of all even know what your attachment style is. And then you also have to know, like why you view and perceive love and relationships the way that you do. You have to know who you are, what your triggers are, what your needs are, and it really just kind of starts there. But yes, they can make it work if they both go beyond just their own self-awareness and triggers, but you really have to make it a habit to say, I want to seek to understand my partner, their needs, why they are the way that they are, why they communicate the way they do, why they handle conflict the way that they do. And because most of us are so guarded, it makes us, out to protect our hearts. We can be very selfish, and we're going to solely focus on our needs, our wants, our desires, our unhappiness, and we'll completely dismiss what our partners are needing and where they are coming from. So if each person truly takes the time to work on themselves, revisit their past, think about their childhoods, think about the relationship with the mother, think about the relationship with the father or lack thereof when it comes to those relationships. With that, yeah, you can grow, you can develop, you can evolve, you can heal, you can have an idea of what a healthy relationship looks like. It's definitely possible for it to work, but it's going to take work on both sides for it to happen.
Wow. Sounds like there needs to be a lot of communication, a lot of understanding, and a lot of self-awareness based on what you just said. Wow. Based on what we talked about so far, do you think somebody can actually change their attachment style over time? And if so, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Attachment styles can change. Because I'll admit, I myself, I was anxious, preoccupied. Well, I actually started off not realizing that I was fearful avoidant, disorganized. And that's because of my upbringing. My father and my mom, they separated when I was 3 years old. My dad, even though he was still here locally, I really didn't see him as much as I needed to. I really didn't get a lot of the love and everything like that. So even though I craved it and wanted it, it really didn't happen. So I realized going into my own romantic relationships that I had that push pull dynamic that I talked about. I was very disorganized. It was kind of like telling men, oh, I want you and whatever else. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I don't need you. I don't know who you think you are. So it's like I was a hot mess and confusing those men when it was really wanting the love, but being afraid that a man was never actually going to stick around. So for the longest time, I was fearful avoidant. Funny enough, when my mom passed away almost 10 years ago, that actually triggered me to become anxious, preoccupied. And it caused me to do a lot of clinging and, double texting and why don't you want to be with me and being with all the emotionally unavailable men. So there was a huge shift in how I did dating and relationships for the longest time. And I think, of course, thankfully, with me now being in this profession, and truth be told, also, I went through a very bad breakup in 2017 and crying out to God and just praying, throwing myself at the feet of Jesus. Psalm 34:18, Lord, you said you were close to the brokenhearted and those who are crushed in spirit. So he started healing me and he really took me on this journey to show me why I dated the men that I dated, why I had those connections, why I, all of these different things with men, sex, love, and dating. So slowly over time, I started healing my own heart while I was helping other women at the same time. And it caused me to finally form healthy connection, healthy relationship habits and things like that. So I can be honest and say I am not 100% secure, but I'm finally making my way there. And I've helped other women, as well. I said the majority, all of my clients are insecure attachment style. And it's also a process doing the same thing, helping them heal and become aware, change their habits and their patterns so that they can also get to being in that secure place. So it is possible, but again, it takes being honest with ourselves. I always say God can't bless what we pretend to be. Like you have to be honest about your
Amen.
struggles, where you
Yes.
are, your thoughts, your mindset, your actions. Identify those things, evaluate them, determine where they came from, and then also saying, hey, I'm making a decision to be better, to do things differently, and realizing my relationships have not been going well in the past. I need to make some changes. And when someone can get honest about their patterns and their habits and their type and all of those things, slowly they can take that journey towards healing and becoming whole, having their self esteem, self worth, and self love be where it needs to be. And with that, they will start to become secure. So your attachment style can change, absolutely. But I'll be honest, it does take a lot of work that you have to be willing to put in, but it is absolutely possible.
But the good news is, if you put in the work, you can make it happen. So that's good. Now, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but if you want to dive into it a little more, what does a securely attached person do differently in a relationship?
Good question. So, a secure person, their identity is not wrapped up in the relationship, first and foremost. It's one of those things where they know who they are, they know what they want, they know what they deserve. They are not going to settle, they do not ignore red flags. They know how to effectively communicate because a lot of people, oh, I know how to communicate. Yes, but do you know how to communicate well? And a lot of people do not. So, a secure person knows how to effectively communicate. Like I said, they don't wrap themselves up in the relationship. They know how to trust. They're not always wondering, if their partner is doing something, if they can trust, if there's any dishonesty, disloyalty. They know how to have that healthy balance where they realize what it takes to maintain and sustain a healthy relationship. But they also are saying, hey, I know that I also need and want to have my own life, whether it's doing things solo, whether it's doing things with my own social circle and friend group. They make sure that they are not codependent on their partner. While they desire to have that love from their partner, it's not something that they need. A secure person does not stay in a relationship well past the expiration date. They know when they are dealing with someone who is toxic, unhealthy, unhealed, someone with trauma and things like that. They know when their needs are not being met. A secure person is going to be very selfless, but at the same time, because they have developed self love and they also have great self esteem, they can be selfless, but they're not going to allow their needs to be dismissed because of the self respect that they have for themselves. So there are many things that go into being a secure person. Those are just the main signs of what a secure person does differently in their connections.
Great, all right. Excellent. So, based on attachment style, what are some relationship red flags people should watch out for?
Oh, goodness. So, of course, that's going to be based off of each person, their, of course, individual needs. Now, of course, we have the general red flags. I always laugh and I say today in modern times, we've made everything a red flag. And I'm like, that might be something that's not a preference for you, or maybe it's even a deal breaker, but it
Mm,
doesn't make something a red flag. I say red flag is something where it's letting you know, like, hey, danger ahead, whether it's physical danger, any type of physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, financial or spiritual abuse. Those are the red flags where it's like, hey, this person can and more than likely will hurt you. Those are things that are red flags. So obviously, any signs early on of, like whether it's disrespect, infidelity, womanizing behaviors from a man's coming from a man or something like that. Anyone who shuts you down, doesn't allow you to communicate, someone who tries to isolate you from your family or friends, someone who tries to make you feel bad about doing things for yourself, doing things apart from them, anyone who tries to manipulate you, of course, anyone who lays hands on you even just one time, if they even threaten to do it, those are obvious signs. Yeah, anyone who tries to control you in any way, those are like the main red flags that we should be looking for. Those are the things where it's like I always say, red flag literally means stop, danger is ahead. But like I said, other things where it's like preferences and deal breakers, I always say those are yellow flags. That just means pause. The relationship may have, like some issues or some trials that are going to come up, but those are
Right.
not red flags. And we have to stop trying to label everything as red flags. But that's
Right.
another story. So yeah, those are the red flags to look out for.
So, how can single use their attachment style knowledge to date more effectively?
Good question again. So again, definitely starting with that self-awareness. So one of the things I'm big on doing with my clients is ensuring they know who they are. I talk a lot about HISA, but it's HISA, high intensity self-awareness. I need you to know every single thing there is to know about yourself. I need you to know your spiritual gifts, your purpose, your strengths, your weaknesses, your love language, and also your attachment style. And when you know what your attachment style is, you have a better idea and understanding of why you do relationships the way that you do, why you form certain connections, why you desire certain partners, and things like that. And when you know that, again, you're now aware of some of the patterns, you're aware of a lot of your triggers, and having that knowledge beforehand is what you can then take into your dating life and realize, like, hey, you already know this is a trigger for you. You already know that's your attachment system talking. Do not listen to that voice. Or hey, that's just that person that's trying to protect you, but don't let it sabotage you, because unfortunately, a lot of people who have unhealed and unresolved trauma, they engage in a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors. So if you can at least go into something saying, I understand this about me. I know that I tend to fall for men too quickly. So let me put a pause on it with this guy. Let me think about, does he fit my love vision? Is this someone who I would be compatible with? Is this someone who maybe even like according to Genesis 2:18, where like the amplified version says someone who is suitable and complementary for you? When you have that relationship vision, it's saying this is the kind of person that would fit who I am. Their strengths would balance out my weaknesses and vice versa. They can accept my spiritual gifts. They can love me according to my language. So that way, when you actually go into the dating world knowing all of these things, it's saying, okay, now I can date better. I know who I am. I know how I can get. I know what might make me a little bit crazy. I know when I need someone to reel me in. I know some of the things that people have complained about in the past. That will help you date better. Having that knowledge gives you a great advantage of not only finally finding love and a real connection, but to also help prevent you from engaging in any of the things that did not help you in the past. It's going to help you from not self sabotaging, self betraying, self neglecting, and things like that. So that is definitely something that I ask a lot of my ladies, like, what is your attachment style? And if they
Yep.
do not know what it is, then I help them figure it out, because you do need that knowledge to help you date better. And it really does make the world of difference.
Wow, wow. Know yourself first is pretty big in a dating world, in any relationship, actually, like you just mentioned. You did say something that I'm like, wow, I've never heard that before. You say love plan. What is the love plan?
What is a love plan? So one thing I do, because again, with the ladies that I've worked with are the ones who have repeated all the same things repeatedly, and it's like, hey, let's get serious, let's change up some things. So what I actually do is I have something that's called Write the Vision, and I even have a
Yeah.
workshop based on that. And what I do is I literally take them through four main pillars where it's saying, okay, who are you? What do you want? When do you want it? And who do you want it with? So I take them through this whole process of getting super clear. Again, that HISA, that high intensity self awareness. From there, it's like, okay, now what kind of relationship do you want? How do you see your relationship going? What are the core relational values? What are the things that matter to you that you know that you want in a relationship, even if you've never had it? Even if you're thinking, oh, well, I might not get it, because a lot of people operate from that place of settling. They know what they want, but it's like, maybe I'm asking too much. And that typically goes with the fear of rejection and fear of abandonment. But I'm like, no, right now, while you are single, what do you want? Let's talk about when you want it. And from there, it's like, okay, you know all of these things about yourself. You know what you want, when you want it. Now, who do you want it with? Again, Genesis 2:18. What kind of partner is going to be suitable and complementary to all of those things that you just listed? So I take them through a full process of creating that love vision, that relationship blueprint, and saying, okay, now I know what I want dating to look like for me. Now I know, or at least I know what kind of relationship I want. I have a blueprint of what I want love and relationship to look like. I know my deal breakers. I know my preferences, my standards. I know the things that I can and can't deal with. And when you actually have that blueprint and that vision, it's going to help you date better, because now that way you can go into something securely saying, hey, if I see certain things in a man, I know that this does not match the blueprint that I created. Literally, I make them do like a whole workbook based on these things. And I know it's going to be weird to show up with that to a date, but I'm like, at least have those things in your head. So at the first sign of, hey, I said I wanted this, but I can see that this guy is obviously this. He does not fit my vision. I'm gone. Because, like I said, if you go in predetermined, knowing what you want things to look like ahead of time and having that blueprint or having that vision, it's going to help you, especially if you're anxious, preoccupied. Because, again, like I said earlier, it's hard to rationalize, truth be told, and scientifically speaking, once you've already fallen in love. And especially if you are anxious, preoccupied, everything else will go out the window once you meet someone. It's like, oh, maybe he'll change, or oh, he's good at this, but I really like this about him. Or, well, maybe God brought us together. And you have all of these crazy things that you'll start allowing to lead you. But it's like, but if you had that plan and that vision and that blueprint beforehand, you would have never allowed yourself to settle once again or self sabotage once again. That's what I mean when I say have a vision, have a blueprint. I am big on that. I make ladies create that.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. Listen, guys, if you are here listening to this and know yourself, okay? Because that's the only way we can do relationships. Because we have vision for a lot of things in our lives. Like, this is what I want by this age. This is what I want, like, in different stage of our life. Love, man. Listen, you hear me? Have a love plan, guys. All right. So, if you probably mentioned this already, but if someone already knows they have an insecure attachment style, what is the first step towards healing and developing healthier relationship patterns?
Yeah, so something else that I do with my ladies is I always say you have to go back to the beginning. So in coaching, I use what I call my H4 framework, and the first H is household. Everything that we do, pretty much, it comes from our household. It comes from our mom, our dad, our caregivers. Our childhood has such a big effect on us. And what I also know is that studies show that the relationship with the same sex parent, that determines who we are. It determines how we see ourselves. It determines what our self-esteem is, all of that. The relationship with the opposite sex parent is what determines and dictates how we do romantic relationships. So obviously I only work with women. So I always say we have to go back and look at the relationship with your mother, because your mother is the reason why your self-esteem is the way that it is. Your mother is the reason why you view yourself the way that you view yourself. It's why you show up the way that you do. And then we always have to examine the relationship with their father. And like, your father is the reason why you view men the way that you do, why you date the way that you do, or date the men that you do. So going back to the household matters. And a lot of us don't want to do that because, like, oh, my past isn't affecting me, or because there is some things that are painful from the past that a lot of people don't want to revisit. But I always say, when you don't want to revisit it, when you don't want to go back, that is telling inside of itself. Like, that shows that there is something that you have not faced. And a lot of people do not realize that healing is in order. They think, oh, I'm fine. It doesn't have a hold on me. They think because they're not, walking around crying or depressed or angry, that they're good to go, not realizing that their thoughts, their words, and their actions all say something different. And I always say, and those things are also seeds that you're planting at the end of the day. And we know the Bible says you will reap what you sow. So what are you planting at the end of the day? So the first thing first, you have to revisit the past. You have to go back to figure out, why am I like this? Why does this attract me? Why does this motivate me? Why do I date these kind of people? Where did this come from? Why do I get upset when this happens? Why don't I speak up? Why don't I use my voice? Why do I allow my needs to get neglected? And it's really a journey of like self reflection and saying, I'm going to take a pause because I need to figure some things out. But that is always the first step, is going back to the past, getting honest about the house that you grew up in, getting honest about the kind of childhood that you had, getting honest about your mother. What was her personality? What did you learn from her? What were y'all's relationships like? Your relationship like? What kind of relationships did you see her in? How did she treat your father? And then doing the same thing with your dad, saying, okay, what kind of man was he? If I could describe him in one sentence, how did I see him treat my mom? All of those things. But when you go back there, it's crazy the answers that you will actually come up with, and you will learn so much about yourself. But I think beyond that, the next step that is equally as important, it's not just saying, oh, okay, this is the way that I am, but it's saying, okay, now that I know this, what am I going to do with this information? Like, you can't allow it to become that badge or that shield that you hide behind where it's like, oh, well, I'm like this because my mom did this, or you don't realize that I'm like this with men because my daddy, whatever. And I'm like,
Mm,
do you want to get well? Like, stand up, pick up your mat and walk, girl. Like, you are not staying
yeah.
here at the end of the day. And I think that that's just where it has to start. You have to go back to the past, get some answers, and then decide, I am going to change. I'm going to do things differently, especially if you know that a relationship matters and that you want to win at love one day.
Wow, 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 wow. This was so insightful. If you're watching this and you want to dive deeper into how your attachment style affects your relationship, drop a heart emoji. Say something in the comments. I'm gonna let Coach V let you know how you can reach out to her in a minute. But yeah, get it together, girl. Let's get secure. Let's get healthy so our relationship can reflect that. Coach V, what is a final takeaway? And then you can tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Takeaway. I always think, I don't know why this passage just came to mind. I'm not trying to get all preachy. I hope most of the people here are believers. But one thing I will say, I always think about when the Sadducees and the Pharisees were trying to trip Jesus up with asking him what the greatest commandment was. And what he said was, you have to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, and all of your mind. But the next one is equally as important. You have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so, what I always tell women, you really have to get in that place of saying, I am going to dwell in God's love. I am going to not just do weekend visits. I am going to let Him come in and renew my heart, make me over, do whatever needs to be done so that I really can heal and become whole and know who I am. And then, when you do that, it will then take you to the second step of being able to develop self love. And when you really love yourself, again, you will realize that love is selfless. I always say love is an intellectual decision. You are saying, I am choosing to meet the legitimate needs of someone else. But when you really love yourself, again, you're not going to accept nonsense. You're not going to neglect yourself. So dwelling in God's love will help you develop self love. And from there, then you can focus on discovering real love. So that would be my main thing. Just really take the time to intentionally dwell, develop, then focusing on discovering. Because so many women, they hear that I'm a dating coach, they see my content, and it's like, oh, girl, help me get a man, send me an invoice. How can you help me? And I'm like, listen here, I already know we got some work to do. Okay. Because if you're telling me you've been struggling for years, I know that there's work that we have to do. My first step is not going to be, okay, let's get you on a dating app and let's get you on some dates. No, we've got to dwell and develop first. And a lot of people don't know what it is that they are in need of. Start with God. Ask God, renew my heart, create me a clean heart, reveal the things to me that are displeasing to you. And I love when a lot of women hop in my inbox with honesty where they're like, I don't know what my problem is. Help me. And I'm like, okay, that's a good place to start because you're at least acknowledging that there is a problem. Start with God and get honest. Let me just say that honesty more than anything, and just wanting better and being serious about changing some things up. And that'll make the world of difference. Hopefully I answered that question.
Amen. You did just that. Thank you. All right. So, how can the people get in touch with you and get right with themselves first and find their partners?
Yeah, sure. So on Facebook, I do have, it's a free group. My community, it's called the SAS Tribe, which is Saved and Single. It is only for women. I always have men trying to sneak in there, but I screen and pay attention, so no men allowed. I'm big on affirmations, making sure women are encouraging themselves, providing tips and stuff like that, weekly training videos. That's also how you can find out as well about some upcoming things that I have. And then outside of that, my website, it's www.newthinglifecoaching.com, and you can find out more. I love to talk, as you can see. I do blogs, I do podcasts, I do videos. I'm always trying to help because I
Yes.
started off in ministry. So sometimes I do a whole lot of free things because I really have a heart for single Christian women. But you can
Right.
find a plethora of stuff on my website. And I don't know, right now, of course, with the book that I released, No More Lonely Nights, I always say, like, that is that place to start where if you're like, hey, I'm not about to invest thousands in coaching or who is this lady, but if you know that you want to change and something needs to happen, no more lonely nights. It's literally how to coach yourself to a happy, healthy, holy relationship. And it is going to take you start to finish everything that you can think of with the first chapter is literally talking about your daddy. The second chapter is talking about your mama. The third one is talking about your mama, your daddy, and your grandparents. Like, we're going through every single thing, my H4 framework. We talked about attachment styles here in this podcast. There's a chapter that goes based on just every single attachment style combination possible. So you'll know what that relationship would look like based on your attachment style and someone else's. So even if you're saying, hey, I know I need to start somewhere, I don't know where to start, that book is a great place. But yes, the SAS Tribe, my community for women, and my website, those are great places to start off and to have you even just connect with me. Even if you're saying, I don't want to buy anything, then just join the free group and consume all the free information. I'm good with that.
You heard her, so get in touch with her. I would put her information in the description. That way it's easier for you if you want to reach out to Coach V. And listen, I'm part of the SAS group myself, so join. We get a lot of affirmation every day. It's amazing. So I'll encourage you, if you're watching this, to join the group. Start there. It's free, like she said. And if you want to get a step further, get the book. Get the book. And then if you like everything you're reading, you're hearing her say, then book the session. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Coach V. This was so insightful. Like I said earlier, it's amazing. I love this topic because when I found out what my attachment style was, I was like, oh Lord, that explains so much of what I was doing. So yeah, so you have to get yourself together, right? So thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate
Absolutely.
your time. I'm so happy you were able to join me today. And again, I'll put your information in this description so people can reach out to you and start getting healthier. And again, to my audience, if you like this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, and then we will see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.